Welcome, beautiful people, to Camp Koji. My name is Joel. Thank you for joining me as I break down the biggest gaming news from the week that was on the only podcast you will ever need. On today's show, we're going to talk about actors going on strike, Overwatch going 6v6. We're going to close it off by talking about the Marvel Rivals closed beta. But first, I want to talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows. Last week, Ubisoft published a letter addressing the Japanese community and some of the controversy surrounding the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows. So they released something on their Twitter, 4 different images. I have 3 in front of me that we're going to read from. Basically addressing some of the concerns about the upcoming Shadows. I believe it comes out in November, I think is the release date. So first page of the letter, well, this is actually technically page 2. I'm going to read off of page 2, 3, and 4. They talk about the overall authenticity efforts. We have put significant effort into ensuring an immersive and respectful representation of feudal Japan. However, our intention has never been to present any of our Assassin's Creed games, including Assassin's Creed Shadows, as factual representations of history or historical characters. Instead, we aim to spark curiosity and encourage players to explore and learn more about the historical settings we get inspired by. Assassin's Creed Shadows is first and foremost designed to be an entertaining video game that tells a compelling historical fiction set in feudal Japan. Our team extensively collaborated with external consultants, historians, researchers, and internal teams at Ubisoft Japan to inform our creative choices. Now, there have been a few things that have been pointed out about the way that Japan is represented in this video game that people don't feel like it's extremely faithful. But I think it's pretty obvious that Assassin's Creed is being heavily scrutinized. I genuinely don't remember this happening when Ghost of Tsushima came out, and I don't think it's just because Ghost of Tsushima is somehow way more accurate or more accurate than Assassin's Creed Shadows. I think it's just because we have this moment where there's this group of people that are putting this game under a microscope because of the decision of Yasuke being chosen as one of the main protagonists for this video game. It's undeniable that is what is happening here right now. And this first page begins a pattern of why this, quote unquote apology was probably one of the dumbest things that Ubisoft could have done, because it was so unnecessary, it was so unneeded. And by putting these sort of things into this apology, you're in a sense validating the really dumb opinions of a small group of people. Sometimes social media makes people think that it is real, that are, there's something about social media and trends and tweets and seeing numbers and likes and comments that puts this bug in your brain that makes you think, oh my God, everyone thinks that this is bad. It's such a large number of people. They're going to lose so many sales. And then the game comes out and it shatters records, right? So by putting something like this into your statement, talking about, hey, our intention was never to present any of our games as factual representations of history. You are addressing people that are not arguing in good faith. Anyone who says that Assassin's Creed has ever strived for accuracy is just lying. And, we've reached this point in social media discourse where lying is sort of just on the table. Lying is just part of the tactics that people use nowadays. They don't argue in, over a foundation of facts. It's over a foundation of opinions and feelings. And when someone comes forward with that type of statement saying that, none of this is accurate, this is not accurate to what Japan was at that time, for whatever reason they want to bring up, they obviously are completely missing the point of Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed has never, ever, in its entire history, been a factual representation of the time period that they depict. Even from the very, very beginning, from the very first one, it's just never been that way. And anyone who says so is clearly arguing in bad faith. constructing the straw man, as you will. So for Ubisoft to bring that up as if it's an actual concern, all you're basically doing is validating the imagination of these people who want to tear down this game without any discernible reason or any real stake in what's happening, because they are not going to buy this game at all. This next page, I just want to talk about this particular point. It says, we also want to clarify that while we have been consulting with many people throughout the development process, they are in no way responsible for the decisions that are taken by the creative teams in the interest of gameplay and entertainment. So once again, validating the opinions of this specific group that either A, don't understand what consultants do, or B, and I think this is the likelier scenario, understand what consultants do, but choose to ignore everything and create a narrative that just supports the argument that they're trying to make even better. So we went through this already when it came to Sweet Baby, where you have this group of people, just to make it easier, we're going to call it the group on the right. They are trying to convince everyone that Sweet Baby has some hidden cabal of power in our industry, where they want you to believe the scenario that Sweet Baby, this small group of consultants, is able to walk into a studio. So we'll use Insomniac Games as a perfect example, and we'll use Spider-Man 2. That they walked into the studio, they looked at the design for Mary Jane, and they told Insomniac, that design is too sexy. She's too attractive. I want you guys to widen her jaw a bit, make her manlier, because that is what the people want. Or that they stepped into the offices of Remedy and they went, yeah, we see that you guys have this main protagonist. Her name is Saga. We think she should be black, so you guys should make her black. In the world that they've created, like I said, this world of imagination, both Remedy and Insomniac, the companies who hired these people, went either A, okay, cool, let's go ahead and do that, let's do whatever the heck you say, or B, somehow there's a contract in place where Sweet Baby is able to walk into these companies and make absolutely any changes that they want. That's the scenario and the imagination that these people want you to believe. It's just not rooted in fact. This is why previously on the YouTube channel, I've thought about making more videos specifically about this guy named Grums, I call him the leader of the Gremlins. But the issue is that I would put up a very good faith argument based in fact, based in the real world. When you're fighting against someone who is living in a world of imagination, you're not going to win that, okay? Think about when you were play fighting as a kid, 8, 9, 10 years old. There was always that one kid that you were play fighting with, and you say, I cast my fireball, and all of a sudden they're like, well, I have an infinity shield +1, so your fireball doesn't do anything. Oh, well, this spell knocks down your shield. Well, I have my backup shield, infinity +2. That's literally the argument you guys are having with these people. There's no end. There's not a point where they go, okay, you got me. No, the goalposts will continue to move and move and move because they don't operate in the same world that we live in. It's essentially a multiverse theory. They live in a different universe where they want people that follow them. They feel emboldened by their followers. And they basically create these scenarios in these worlds where it's like, yeah, this is the truth. The truth is what I tell you it is. So they want people to believe that Ubisoft and these companies sit around in a table, and one of the first decisions that they say is, well, we're making Assassin's Creed. Well, it's got to be a black guy, right? Like, that's not how any of this works. Anyone will tell you that. Same thing with Suicide Squad. You had employees, former artists, writers, people from Sweet Baby go in and tell you, no, the story was created by the same people that created every single Arkham story you guys have loved. It was just a miss. They were the ones that decided to do this whole killing the Justice League. They wrote those scenes out of Batman getting shot in the face. They also wrote the back door where, okay, surprise, surprise, none of them are actually dead, which I think is a super cop-out. I didn't like it. It looks like they're finally starting to execute that plan, their DLC for the game that no one even cares about anymore. The game failed because it was a failure. They every decision, every fork in the road, they went the wrong direction. That's why Suicide Squad failed. Suicide Squad doesn't fail because I can't see Harley Quinn's cleavage anymore. It's really dumb. And like I said, they want to create this scenario where this is the truth and it's not. Let's go with the next page. While we strive for authenticity in everything that we do, Assassin's Creed games are works of fiction inspired by real historical events and figures. From its inception, the series has taken creative license and incorporated fantasy elements to craft engaging and immersive experiences. The representation of Yasuke in our game is an illustration of this. His unique and mysterious life made him an ideal candidate to tell an Assassin's Creed story with the setting of feudal Japan as a backdrop. While Yasuke is depicted as a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we acknowledge that this is a matter of debate and discussion. We have woven this carefully into our narrative with our other lead character, the Japanese shinobi Naoe, who is equally important in the game. Our dual protagonists provide players with different gameplay styles. So once again, you are bending the bridge, for these people who sort of have no desire to even walk over it. That term, if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it's probably a duck. If it walks like racism, if it talks like racism, it's probably racism. There's a lot of, I think, very balanced critique on the choice of Yasuke. I myself gave my critique on Camp Koji when they first introduced this. I disagree with the decision. I actually don't think Yasuke was a good choice for Assassin's Creed, because by choosing Yasuke as your protagonist, you essentially break the character in half. You are forced to break the character in half, right? Yasuke, you just would not be able to believe that this person can blend in Japan, sneak around unseen. So at that point, you are forced to, once again, cut the character in half, which is what they did. So you use Naoe to go in stealthy if you choose to. You use Yasuke to go in, kick the doors down. By introducing Yasuke, you instantly create a problem in your video game. And your solution to it is to take what we would normally take all the mechanics of a single character and break that character in half. That's not a good enough solution to support the decision to put Yasuke in the game. The better alternative would have been stick with what they've been doing with the last two big Assassin's Creed games, with Odyssey and what was the other one? Valhalla, where you have one character, two genders. You can choose your male character, you can choose your female version. They have their own unique names. I think sometimes they have unique dialogue options. Don't quote me on that. And obviously you would have done it this time for a Japanese character. So Naoe would have either been a male or female, choosing what you want. Then you could have had one character do everything. And then what I would have done is introduce Yasuke in a DLC. And then that DLC is way more action-packed. You introduce some new combat mechanics, make combat a lot deadlier, a lot heavier than what we saw with these, the character that we played through the entire story with. I think it would have played off better across all metrics, and it would have, I think, worked better for the character of Yasuke, for them to maybe even cross paths in that DLC with the main character, whatever you call it, Naoe, I guess. Just keep that name. That would have made more sense. So that is what you can consider a very balanced critique. This is why I don't think Yasuke was a good choice. Notice how I didn't say anything about Yasuke being black, okay? If anyone wants to bring that up, I'm not going to say it's 100% of the time that if someone's complaining about Yasuke being in this game is racism, but that whistle is there. Like, a lot of people are blowing. Like, you can tell, you can feel it, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put it through in this context that's exactly why this thing doesn't work. And they're trying to find a way to get, kind of break through the wall. So they're saying, oh, Japan's upset. The government of Japan is upset at this video game. It's BS. They're creating fake, what do you call it? Fake petition saying it's straight from Japan. You have these people that are running English translations to a Japanese translator and creating fake puppet accounts to make it look and sound. What you guys need to understand is people have no lives. They will spend all day long doing bot activities just to do this. Okay? The only way to win this game is to not play, which is why Ubisoft should never have acknowledged this little campaign that's happening. Twitter is not a real place. We've seen it so many times. Remember, Pokemon boycott. Nobody buy Pokemon. They sold 12 million copies in 3 days or something like that. Look at Hogwarts Legacy. Everyone boycott Hogwarts Legacy, you bunch of transphobe. The biggest selling video game of the year, breaking almost a decade-long streak for Call of Duty, right? The internet and Twitter, by extension, is not a real place. So we can't treat it as a real place. Ubisoft needs to focus all their time and energy on people who are actually going to buy the game, people who are excited. Apparently, their pre-orders tracked really well week one, from what we heard from insiders. I think the game is going to still be a success. I think a lot of people are still really interested in it. I probably won't be there day one. Maybe I'll access it to Ubisoft Plus. I'm just not an Assassin's Creed fan anymore. It just doesn't offer enough for me. But that's where your focus should lie. And then the same has to be said for content creators, whether you're YouTubers or you have big social media accounts on Twitter or TikTok, wherever. You guys got to stop acknowledging this. The only way to win the game is to not play. If someone is living in a world of imagination, you don't step into the world of imagination, okay? You leave the door, you close it, and you lock it behind you, and you just leave them in that room by themselves. You let them have their little bubble, let them live in their fake world where DA is ruining gaming. Gaming is garbage because I can't see titties anymore. You have to let those kids live in their room. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression. They are free to have that space for themselves and their people. They can be hateful pieces of shit on their own. They can be little crybabies on their own, arguing and talking about absolutely nothing substantive. There's no substance to any of the arguments that they're making. Once again, they're not arguing in good faith. They will continue to move those goalposts. Their armors is going to go to infinity +3, then +4, +5. Anytime you're entering into any sort of discourse with them, it's not worth the time. It's not worth the energy. It's the reason. Look, my platform is tiny, okay? My YouTube is still under 1,000. My Twitter is still under 500. I don't have that much pull. I don't have that much influence. But even with my tiny amount of influence, I'm not giving... I just refuse to give attention to stuff like this because it's a losing battle. It's just going to be a waste of time. It's just going to be a waste of my energy. Let's quickly talk about the SAG-AFTRA strike. So SAG-AFTRA called a strike of the interactive media agreement effective July 26 at 12:01 a.m. Today's vote to strike comes not today's, actually. Last week's vote to strike comes after more than a year and a half of negotiations without a deal. They say SAG-AFTRA is striking with this contract so that members working in interactive media, video games, can continue earning a living doing the job that they love. Our members' work and licenses are being exploited by artificial intelligence, and video game companies have refused to plainly affirm in clear and enforceable language that they will protect all performers covered by this contract in their AI language. Now, in terms of who's arguing or negotiating for the other side, it is for the interactive media agreement, which is a video game contract. SAG-AFTRA bargains collectively with the following companies: Activision Productions, Blind Light LLC, Disney Character Voices, Incorporated Electronic Arts, or EA, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac Games, Llama Productions, Take-Two Productions, VoiceWorks Productions, Inc., and WB Games. These are the companies SAG-AFTRA has tried to reach a fair deal with since October 2022 and who have refused to agree to the critical terms our members need. So all 160,000 SAG-AFTRA members are covered under the strike order. The 2023 actor strike lasted about 118 days. And at the heart of this dispute, because they had a like a conference or Q&A portion while they were at Comic-Con to talk about what was happening in a little bit more detail. So what at the heart of this dispute are digital replicas, generative AI systems used for synthetic performances, and protection for face, body, and voice performances. So digital replicas, that's taking an actor's voice and creating a new performance without the original actor being involved. So a lot of times, I know this happens in films, but I'm sure it happens in video games too. You know, at some point you realize you need a little bit extra for certain cutscenes. You think you got it all in that 1 week of getting that actor in the booth. You need something a little bit extra. In order to do that, you still have to then rebuild that actor at the same hourly rate, if I'm not mistaken. It's not something where you could tell them like, hey, so we actually only have 3 lines for you to do. So instead of paying you $200 an hour, we're only going to pay you $80, right? No, I believe that the hourly rate still applies that you originally had agreed upon if you asked them to do more work. And technically, you probably even will have to pay more because now you're adding to the original schedule that we agreed upon. You told me I would only be there for 4 weeks. Now you want me for 5 weeks. So I think a lot of agents are able to pull a little bit more when you do something like that. These companies would love nothing more than to use what you've already recorded, run it through an AI, and change the word that they need for a certain moment of exposition in the video game. So what the protection that they're trying to get to is, yeah, you can't create a digital replica without my knowledge, without my sign off. You need that acknowledgement before you do something like that, which I think is really, really smart and obviously very, very necessary. They're also seeking protection for stunt performers to not be replaced by synthetic AI trained on past performances. That's interesting. I guess I didn't think about that when we were thinking about that SAG-AFTRA strike. I think sometimes we only think about voice actors. We forget that there's still a lot of motion capture. A lot of these actors nowadays don't just do voice anymore. They also do motion capture. And, you know, even in video games and cutscenes, fully animating an action sequence is not going to be as easy, and it won't look as good as using actual stunt performers. So those stunt performers also have to be protected because it's a lot easier to replicate a stunt by using AI to generate, you know, a new form of that stunt by feeding it information that, you know, these large publishers already own so much of that information from past video games that they can feed into an AI. Instead of saying, yeah, we need to hire someone so they can jump through this window in this cutscene, it's, hey, you know what? We have 100 different games where we have a form of someone jumping through something else, through some opening, and we can mash these all together and tell it to express something new from it. So they want protection from that. The industry is also arguing that not everyone giving a performance should be recognized as a performer, and that motion capture is better classified as data. So they look at motion capture as, well, that's just data, because when, you know, Joel is hired to, you know, play a bank robber that has to jump from a car, the video game player that's playing the game doesn't recognize Joel as the person who jumped out of the car. It's a skeleton that is attached to any artificial body. So because of that, that's actually data. That's not a performance. So that's the argument that's kind of the loophole that they're trying to create to get around paying actors their fair share. And, you know, I talked about this a lot when the actors went on strike. Now we're kind of doing this again with video games. With video games, I think it's actually 100 times worse, or it could be worse than actors. I personally don't ever see a scenario where actors will fully be replaced by AI. I think that's just a step too far. I think that is something that consumers will push back on. I tell you one thing, I'm not interested in watching any film where an actor is completely digital. We know that there are digital versions of actors in certain moments where, you know, I think about smart AI is like, oh yeah, using an actor so that we can get better close-ups of stunt performers because it's a lot easier to, you know, put the actor's face onto the stunt double's face. That will create some better dynamic shots in films. That's a brilliant use of AI as long as everyone is signed up to it. The actor gives permission just for this particular moment, this scene, this stunt. You can map my face on there, and then I don't know, the data needs to be deleted or whatever. Like, that's the protection that a lot of these actors are wanting. Voice acting for video games is the biggest threat in terms of AI. Like voice actors and motion performers. So video games are actually way more at risk than film is in this whole AI revolution, because it would be so easy to do it. One thing that video games are looking forward to, or gamers looking forward to, is generative AI. So we've seen it like, oh, get to have conversations with an NPC. When you do that as a voice actor, I'm now licensing my voice to be used in perpetuity, or maybe there's a lock off, like, hey, you can only use my voice to synthetically apply to this chef AI character for 5 to 10 years or something like that. But you are licensing your voice to be manipulated and say whatever wants to, whatever the AI decides needs to be said at that point. It's pretty dangerous once you think about it. But then the other problem about something like that is that it would be so easy to completely cut voice actors out. Once we will definitely reach a point in AI manipulation where I can tell a voice, emphasize this word. I need it sadder. I need it more depressing, happier, more joy on this moment. Cut off here a little bit earlier. So it's exactly like a director giving instructions to a real physical voice actor. It's sort of sad to see when stuff like this happens, because you see people online that their concern is Grand Theft Auto 6 going to be delayed, to the point that I think Kotaku did the digging and confirmed that GTA 6 is not affected by this. But it's I don't know, it's weird that we've reached this point as a species, a human species, where we're no longer rooting for each other, where we're okay with companies getting their way, because as the end consumer, they look at it as like, I don't care. It's not taking food off my table because I'm not an actor. I just want my games fast. So, hey, if this gets me the games faster, I'm cool with it. I'm down with it. Like, there's just like this group of people that just don't care about other human beings and their jobs. Too many people don't live by the golden rule, do unto others. I think so many of you need to. I think this is going to last longer than the actor strike. Like I said, the actor strike lasted 118 days. I could see this one lasting longer. I hope it doesn't. But I think that companies are not going to want to give this up. There is a potential to save a lot of money if they're able to do something like this at the expense of us losing a lot of great performances. All right, now let's move on to Overwatch. Overwatch 2 director Aaron Keller addressed the game's biggest elephant in the room, finally, 5v5 versus 6v6. In a lengthy director's take, Keller explains the team's reasoning for transition to 5v5, while also claiming the team will make attempts to test a version of 6v6 at some point in the future. Now, there's been this group of people that have been asking for the game to go back to 6v6 pretty much since the beginning of Overwatch 2. I did not like the original decision to go to 5v5, but once I played the beta, once I played the game, it took me about a good month, but I decided that it was better. I feel like the game is actually better now than it was 6v6, and I think there's a lot of people that look at 6v6 through the lens of nostalgia. Rose-colored glasses is the term I think some people like to use, to the point that they remember all the fun moments of 6v6, but they kind of forget all the bad about 6v6. So I'm going to read a few excerpts from this take from Aaron Keller. He says, quote, "Many times fights in 6v6 couldn't resolve until ultimate abilities came online. Correct that until ultimate combos could be executed to break through 2 tanks worth of mitigation, supported by high uncontested healing output. The world of 6v6 could have really high highs, but really low lows. One of the design goals of 5v5 was to try to raise that floor, even though it was at the expense of some of those high moments. Overwatch 2 also has a great emphasis on FPS gameplay. There's less damage mitigation and CC, and players get to shoot at enemies more." Now, that first point about having to break through, not being able to break through until Ultimates came online. That definitely happened a lot in Overwatch 1. But I will say, as a counterpoint, it happened more on the 2CP maps, which no longer exist in the game. And that was definitely one of the reasons why 2CP was removed. So I think actually part of that is a little bit of poor map design. I don't think it's something that can be solely credited to 6v6. But the double tank of it all definitely created a lot of nightmare scenarios where even in a regular lockdown composition of 2 tanks, 2 DPS, and 2 healers, it was just not fun going up against, let's say, like an Orisa, Reinhardt, or Reinhardt, Sigma, where Sigma throws his shield, you break the shield, then Reinhardt steps up, his shield gets weak. By the time it's about to break, Sigma has his shield back, he throws it out, and now it's just kind of like this back and forth that you're doing for quite some time until hopefully one of your DPS gets a pick. And that's really what the game came down to. There was less agency. You really felt, especially for a person like me who plays support, you really felt like there was almost nothing you can do but become a heal bot. He says the emphasis on ability, cooldown management, ult tracking, shooting barriers to second players, and not big enough timing windows to just shoot enemies and get eliminations were all factors that contribute to this feeling. Support heroes also had to focus almost exclusively on healing since there were bigger team health pools and more incoming damage on the field. With the additional tank player in 5v5, they have more agency to do some damage or duel other heroes. 100% correct. You don't really feel like a heal bot anymore. There's a bit of a change of sustainability overall. The removal of CC or what's considered crowd control, for those that don't know. Crowd control or CC is any move used typically in a hero shooter that really restricts your movement or ability. It stops you from being able to move or use an ability that you have. And it was very prevalent in the first game. They definitely toned it down a lot in part 2. And it makes battles a lot better, a lot fairer. You feel like you're on a more even playing field where you feel like, okay, I won that battle because of mechanically better positioning, better use of cover, and not because this person had a trump card that just froze me in place with his 3 other friends that also froze me in place, and that's why I got deleted from the game. And yeah, I think as a healer, it gives you, or support, it gives you more timing to not have to heal 100% of the time and pump in a little bit more damage and be able to put a little bit more pressure. 5v5 really introduced that. You couldn't really do that in 6v6. He also says, while 6v6 can have high moments, it's also hard to follow. Tracking 9 other players is easier than 11. There are fewer visual effects on screen, especially during big team fights. Overwatch is a pretty demanding game, and moving to 5v5 made it a bit more cognitively manageable. Lastly, one of the biggest benefits of 5v5 was dramatically reduced queue times. So that's just a fact overall. The game can get really, really messy visually when you have 12 people in a battle at the same time, especially when ultimates come online. You have barriers and all these different visual things that exist in the field. And I think the team does the best job imaginable in order to visually convey some of the abilities and what they do and what they're supposed to do. But it's just, I don't think that 6v6, I don't think I ever felt like, whoa, this is like too much. Sometimes it happens, but it's so rare that like everyone pops an ultimate at once and can get really visually insane, psychedelic on screen. So I don't think that it was unbearable in 6v6, but it's you can't argue against the fact that it's just more manageable. It's cleaner. It looks better in 5v5 where you don't have, like I said, all these barriers in every single corner of the game. And then they talked about how faster the queue times are. And every roll dropped in queue time, but the tank was, the damage roll dropped dramatically. So it dropped from an average of 7.6 minutes to 2.9 minutes if you are a damage player. That's a huge, huge drop because so many people were queuing for damage in the original game. So they finish it off by saying, With that said, we're looking at running a series of events to try out different core team composition formats in Overwatch 2. It doesn't sound like it's something that's going to happen anytime soon. They talk about the challenges of being able to execute something like this. This might take some time for them to execute, so it's not something that should be expected to happen even probably within a year. Doesn't sound like it's something that will be possible within a year. I look at this news two ways. I still hate the amount of hate that Blizzard gets, and I want to go into that a little bit further detail. But I also wish that this team was praised a lot more for what they just did. They did something that they definitely don't have to do, something that's going to cost a lot of money for something that you might not even keep. What people need to understand, it's so funny how people think that you could just add one more hero per team and just ship the mode. People really don't. It's not even like a lack of understanding of how game development works. It's like a lack of a desire. It's a lack of curiosity to understand the challenges of doing something like that. Someone created what's called a workshop mode in this game where you can punch in a code, and they created a version of 6v6 inside of Overwatch 2. And I've seen comments of people saying, well, why is this going to take so long? Why are you saying that the UI has to be redone? Why are you worried about frame rates and all that stuff? Someone created a mode. I've played it. It works fine. So it's either sheer stupidity or sheer ignorance, where you think that you playing a private workshop match is the same thing as releasing a 6v6 on scale. It's the same type of it's just preposterous, right? On top of that, this entire game for the about 2 years it's about to be out was done with 5v5 in mind. So you have all these new players that have only known 5v5 that have become very, very accustomed and used to it. But you also have balancing teams. It's been a part of the hero creation. So when you create a new hero, you create them with 5v5 in mind. When the game went from 6v6 to 5v5, almost every hero had to be reimagined. There were a bunch of changes that changed the way that some heroes fundamentally worked. So a lot of their abilities have changed. A lot of their numbers are completely different. Now this team has to go back and do that again. You sort of had to reconsider, what does this Roadhog now look if we put him back into 6v6? And some of these other heroes that you're introducing, like Mauga, what does he look like in a 6v6 environment? That takes a lot of time to do. So I really wished that there was a bit more positivity around the fact that this company is even thinking of doing this, to the point that they are going to put a lot of time, a lot of money and resources into a mode that they're still not convinced they're going to keep. And the only reason they're doing that is because they know they're very loyal to their fan base. They're listening to their fan base. And I think that there is a part of them that thinks and understands, like, hey, maybe they were right and we were wrong. And we are more than happy to test it out. I'm honestly getting tired of the narrative of, people looking at this, they're like, well, what's the point of Overwatch 2 then? Now we're back to the same exact game. And I get and I understand the frustration, but we have more than enough information now about what happened to this game where we can understand what happened. There are two people that work on this video game. There's a publisher and there's a developer. The publisher is Blizzard. The developer, I believe, is Team 4. So we're just going to refer to them as Team 4 from now on. Team 4 had a great idea. They were led by a guy named Jeff. And they had this idea where they realized that the one thing that Overwatch fans loved is the lore and the characters. So they said, okay, we want to create a system for a sequel where we can create PvE and really increase the amount of lore and story content that we put into the video game. That's what people want. That's what we believe the future of the video game is. As an Overwatch player, I can tell you they were 100% right. If this game had a PvE mode alongside PvP, they would have been able to capture an audience that would have never came to this game otherwise. You would have been able to capture a casual audience and hopefully convert them into getting into competitive play, because there are still a lot of people that are intimidated by competitive video games. They rather cooperate. And a lot of people asked for more lore, more, these amazing videos that these guys were making for each of these characters, more comics, more story. And their idea was the right one. It was the perfect direction. Team 4 did everything right. Blizzard did everything wrong. Blizzard is who you guys hate. Team 4 is not who you guys hate. But you have to clarify that. Team 4 is the reason why Overwatch 2 did what it did. Blizzard is the reason why this game turned out the way it did. Blizzard realized that it was going to cost them a lot more money. They realized that they would have to essentially build two completely separate teams. They would have to build a team dedicated to PvE, team to PvP. They were not willing to open up that investment. Okay. On top of that, they realized that, hey, if we went free to play and we made this competitive only, we scrapped all the PvE stuff, we can make our money back faster. And then that's it. And then the decision was made. Jeff left because it wasn't what he wanted to do. A bunch of other people left because it wasn't what they wanted to do. And that's why Overwatch became what it was. This was a Blizzard problem. It wasn't a Team 4 problem. And it sucks because Team 4 is now still trying to fix those mistakes. And yeah, it does suck. It's kind of comical that if this game does decide to go back to 6v6, it became a 4-year experiment to just get us back to where we started. To the point, and I've said this before, that the game should just be renamed Overwatch. Just drop the 2 by now at this point. But I think Team 4 is really making lemonade out of those lemons. And yeah, I just hate how much hate they still get for a decision that was not theirs, for a decision that was out of their hands. I personally still to this day prefer 5v5. I think I'd actually be okay with a 6v6 mode if that was possible. But I think from a competitive standpoint, I think 5v5 works better. Absolutely, I think it works better. I think the only reason why people like 6v6 is because the game was a little bit easier. I think is especially for tanks, it's easier. You kind of had an extra body to sort of pick up your slack if you weren't doing so well. It was easier to escape if you made a mistake because you had extra bodies on the field. I think that 5v5 is better personally, but at the end of the day, I still enjoy the game. I don't care if it's 7v7, if they want to go that far. I probably will still be there to have fun with it. But yeah, I mean, I really think that people need to praise this team a bit more for even attempting to do something like this instead of being so overtly negative about everything. Let's move on to our final story, Marvel Rivals closed beta that's happening this week. Its Steam numbers peaked at 52,671 consecutive players and averages around 39,000 per day. Yeah, if you thought that this really shows how bad Concord did, doesn't it? Jesus Christ, man. Concord peaked at 2,000. These guys peaked at 52,000. This is a closed beta. Concord had a completely open beta. The only way to get into this beta is you would have had to play the alpha and reach level 10, which I did, which is why I got into this closed beta. You have to get lucky with Twitch drops. You have to watch a Twitch stream for like an hour, and then it's not guaranteed that you'll be able to claim one. People hate the system. Apparently the system is fundamentally broken. Or if you have access to the game, you can generate, I believe it's only one code per beta, and you have to do it at a period of time of the day. So like around 8 p.m., a button unlocks, so you can click that and generate a code to give to a friend on the platform that you're on. So this is on Steam. I was able to generate Steam code for a friend. So even in a closed beta, 52,000 compared to Concord's 2,200, I think it was, which just shows you how bad that game did. Now, so I played the alpha when it came out in May. I had a lot of good things to say about it. So let's just dive in here. Let's talk about the good. The good about this game is that it's very easy to pick up and it's really fun to play. There's really no way No other way to express that. It is a fun game. It's easy to pick up. It is one of those games that the heroes are complex enough mechanically that they actually do have a lot of depth to them. They're not brain dead. Like I don't feel like there's any hero that feels very super brain dead to play as, but it's very fun because they did their best to express each character uniquely. Like when you're flying around as Iron Man, it feels like Iron Man, you know? They don't impose any artificial limitations on him. They sort of try their best to balance the game around the fact that Iron Man can fly, balance around the fact that Storm can stay suspended in the air at all times. That is obviously such a fundamental feature of those characters that they could have gone the route of, let's say, Overwatch with Pharah for Iron Man, where Pharah is limited to the amount of time that she could stay in the air. You can sort of manage your cooldowns to stay up as long as possible, but she can't stay up there infinitely. Iron Man can. And it sort of makes sense. In this game, if I was forced to land as Iron Man, it just wouldn't really feel as good. But what's interesting about it is that if Pharah was able to stay in the air and maneuver around the same way as Iron Man in Overwatch, she would be an absolutely broken character. In this game, though, a character like Iron Man doesn't feel broken because even though they give him a feature like that, they sort of balance the game out in a way where he doesn't feel extremely oppressive, especially because you can't, there kind of isn't a straight, hard, dedicated healing pocket the same way that Mercy is for Overwatch for flying characters. It's still kind of a bit of a challenge to heal them for a lot of the healers, except for one, which is Snow. So yeah, it makes it really fun to play these characters. Whether it's Venom, when you play the Hulk, you really feel like the Hulk, especially in the beta. And the alpha, Hulk was horrible. Hulk, you punch someone and you feel like it's like paper punches. And in this game, they definitely boosted him up a bit, so he actually does feel like a presence. When he dives on you, he can kind of delete you. The same thing with Venom. He can take you out of the video game very, very quickly. Each character feels like you are actually playing that hero. And it felt like that was that starting base for this video game where it's like, okay, if we're doing Spider-Man, we have to be able to like swing in the back line. It doesn't really seem fair. And honestly, Spider-Man is absolutely broken in this beta right now, but it has to be there. Like you have to be able to feel like these characters. I like that they started with that design philosophy and then balanced from there instead of cutting these characters off at the legs and then building up. Another thing, there are a lot of features out of the box, which I'm still blown away by. I felt that way during the alpha. This game looks to be shipping with a quick play mode, competitive mode. It has different game types. You know, you have your payload, you have your typical, defend, take over this area kind of thing. You have your kill confirm mode is in there also. You have a regular team deathmatch is in there. If you want to play with those, they have a full competitive mode, competitive rankings, bronze, gold, silver. It has a full practice range, which is pretty usable. I think the only thing I wish that they had were meter marks on the floor. I think would be kind of helpful. They have a full tournament mode. They have a full replay feature, which I'm still kind of blown away by. You can replay a match and fully watch a match that you had up to 50. I believe it's 50. I didn't individually count it, but I scrolled through and I was able to look at a match that I played like 2 days ago, which was like, like I said, like match number 50, which I think is insane. There are some things in here that it's almost like over featured, like there is this feature that when you finish a game, you can sort of give your teammates kind of a thumbs up if you felt they did a good job, which I kind of like. But then you can also click on that character and see an individual highlight. So the game will auto-generate that hero's best moment. I can do that for myself and each of my 5 teammates. It's such a useless feature. I don't think it's useful at all. I think if there's a moment I want to replay, I could just go into the replay and try to recall it. I think it's like a little bit overkill in that sense, where it's like, okay, it's kind of cool that it's there. I don't think I would have personally invested the resources to do something like that. or even having replays for up to 50 matches, I think it's insane. I think for Overwatch, I think it's on like 10 or 20 or something like that. So that's kind of, like I said, it's insane to see this amount being put into a game in just the alpha closed beta phase. It has a full faction system. It, of course, has free and paid battle pass tiers. It has daily and weekly challenges. They also have individual hero challenges that I really liked. I think they need to increase those, though. They do have some special ones, which I really like, that sort of are like, play to the lore. So one for Storm is if you defeat an enemy with the help of Black Panther, and obviously they have such a known strong relationship in the comics. So I thought that was kind of, those are kind of cool, neat. Some of them are just more mechanics based, like, hey, defeat 100 people with your ultimate. I just wish those numbers were a little bit higher, and maybe they'll add more as the game goes on, because some of them you feel like you unlock so quickly. But I think those are really cool. There's just a lot in here for a game at the very, very beginning. I remember even thinking about competitive and looking at the way they tiered competitive, the fact that competitive had degradation baked right in from the beginning. Each tier had individual tiers inside of it. There was a little bit of demotion protection. There's just a lot that they thought of straight out of the box when it came to this video game that I thought was really, really great. The other thing that's good is the art style. This is without a doubt one of the best looking games of the year. I think it definitely should be up for some sort of art design awards, visual design at the end of the year. The character designs are flawless. I look at the characters and I go, yeah, this isn't good. Those sentences don't come out of your mouth. If you're a fan of Marvel, whether it's through the cartoons, the films, the TV shows, the comics, it's just extremely faithful to the characters that they're trying to recreate. Everyone looks really good. The visual aesthetic is completely throughout, from the opening cutscene to getting into matches to even just choosing characters, going to the hero gallery, and then you highlight and the character kind of pops out, and then they follow the cursor. Just a lot of these small minor details. When you click into a character, there's like this big grand cutscene of them coming out into the field. There's a whole big lore page to explain to you about that character. There's an abilities page that really breaks down how each ability works alongside. I like this one thing that they did where they have like a combo suggestion of like a good way to introduce synergy with this character's different abilities and be able to use them together. They just put so much extensive work into a lot of the core of this video game that I'm still blown away by it. I didn't expect this. When we first heard rumors about this and it being a NetEase game, I thought to myself, okay, here's another kind of really super mobile game or something like that. I'm still blown away by how wrong I was about that. Other things that are really good, large hero variety. And it seems like the team is eager to add more heroes. So the closed alpha happened. Then the closed beta is now occurring. And they introduced 4 new characters in 2 months. So between the alpha and the beta, they not only announced 4 new characters, which were Venom, Adam Warlock, Jeff the Shark, and Thor. They actually put them right into the game. Jeff and Thor were added into the game. I think it was like 3 or 4 days after the beta started, which is kind of a cool little neat surprise for the video game. So it looks like the team is very eager to add more heroes. We already have a full leaked roster that leaked earlier this year. The other heroes that they're planning on adding are Human Torch, Hawkeye, Captain America, Cloak and Dagger, Ultron, Moon Knight, Squirrel Girl, Black Widow, Mr. Fantastic, Winter Soldier, Blade, Psylocke, Wolverine, Invisible Woman, The Thing, and Iron Fist Lin Lee version. So just large character list. I think there's something there for everyone to get people excited to come back to the game at various moments. And it's cool because this list will have a lot of synergy with the MCU. So, you have Captain America or Winter Soldier when Captain America movie comes out, or what's the Winter Soldier? Thunderbolts, the Thunderbolts film. Obviously they have Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic, and Invisible Woman when Fantastic Four film comes out, maybe releasing in a bit of a window from one another. So they can have a lot of real world synergy with the MCU, which I think is a really good positive for them going forward. So that means that the full cast list is 36 characters in the game to Overwatch's 41, which is incredible when you think about it. I mean, we don't know what their release schedule is going to be. Overwatch does about 2 to 3 heroes per year. If they keep up with that, I think that'd be pretty healthy for the game. But it looks like they're very eager to do it. So it kind of feels like, I wonder if they're going to try to do 4 per year. I could see them doing that. The bad. So there are a few things that are bad about this game. Number one is that it remains unbalanced. And it looks like the team is not going to be balancing the betas or they didn't do it during the alpha. The alpha, there were a lot of broken characters. Let's see, who was broken in the alpha? Groot was fundamentally broken in the alpha. He still kind of needs an adjustment. He's more balanced in this game, but he was 1,000% broken because his walls were practically infinite in the original game. Here, they're on a bit of a longer cooldown, but I think that the cooldown still needs to be a bit longer, or the walls need to get weaker. Who else in the original was... I remember Iron Man was useless in the alpha. Like, no one picked him. He was the throw character. Way more improved now. Black Panther was another throwaway character in the original. In the alpha. Way more improved now. But there are still a lot of unbalanced characters. Venom is wildly unbalanced. He has a feature where when he's at critical health, he can activate an overshield, and it like quadruples his health. And then by the time that he's about to die again, he can just swing away, get that cooldown back, maybe get some healing if he's super low, and then swing right back in and repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. So he is kind of broken. Spider-Man is completely broken in the video game right now. He's not a super easy character to use. I'm not going to say that anyone can pick him up, but he has what I would call zero punishment window. So in a normal video game, I like to compare him a lot to Tracer. Tracer in Overwatch is very much like, I'm going to your backline, I'm going in, I'm getting a kill. Hopefully I'm one-clipping someone and I'm getting out. That's really how my character is supposed to work. Spider-Man is like that, but he has a higher health pool, which I think needs to be lowered. And he can delete your character in like 3 seconds. And he has so many advantages because, number one, he can swing in, delete your character in like 3 seconds, and then be able to swing out. So his punishment window is extremely tiny. There's so much happening in the game that, and the way that the architecture works in this game is that there is enough space for a flying character or a very high maneuverability character like Spider-Man to swing up above you. You'll never know it happened until all of a sudden you just get completely deleted from the video game. His punishment window, like I said, is so teeny tiny that he's unbalanced. He's just unbalanced in his current state. They need to lower his health pool or lower his damage just a bit more. I like that his type of character exists. I like that this game has these melee characters. That's something that a game like Overwatch sort of has. Right, you have your Doomfist, you have your Venture, but it's not the same as it is here. I think that it's very true to their characters. Like when you think about Black Panther is like a perfect example of a balanced character, where his main ability is to shift, but you have to sort of mark a character because then when you shift through them, the shift, it's like a dash attack. It resets and you can dash again immediately. So you can dash into a character technically 2 times. So if you were to throw his spear and mark, let's say 3 people, his challenge is when you dash, you don't want to dash through all 3 people because you're going to reset all 3 of your marks. So you want to dash through one, reset it, dash through another one that still has the mark to reset it again. The third one that has the mark to reset it again. So you can kind of play this game where if you mark 3 people, you can get 2 shifts per character because you've marked 3. And that requires a lot of game sense. It requires a lot of sense of spacing. You have to be able to maneuver and know when's the best time to attack with him. And if you miss that shift, he's kind of stuck. He kind of doesn't have an escape, so he has the proper risk to reward management that makes him a very satisfying character where he doesn't feel like, Jesus Christ, I just got deleted before I even knew what was happening to me. Spider-Man doesn't have that because he has his escape. That swing is so fast. And when he swings, the net code for the game doesn't properly keep up with him. Like, you can tell that where you're shooting is not really where Spider-Man actually is visually on the screen, which I think it's just a chore to be able to, like I said, get the proper hitbox for a character that's moving that fast that feels fair. But at the same time is what I said at the top of this segment, which is, if you remove that from Spider-Man, if you make the swing really slow, then it's not Spider-Man anymore. So I've seen a lot of people bring this up where people say that this is a game where everyone is broken, so it somehow works in a sense, which I think is kind of a funny philosophy when you think about it. But yeah, so the game is still kind of unbalanced. There's still a lot of things that are like, okay, that just doesn't really seem very fair. Ultimates come online way too fast. The ultimate economy definitely needs to be balanced, especially because some are so powerful for the fact that you can generate them so quickly, to the point that there's really not much strategy with ultimates. When it comes to a game like Overwatch, when you have an ultimate, you want to bank it. You're thinking about the right moment to choose. In this game, it almost feels like, no, I should just use this instantly because I know I'll have it in like 30 seconds. It feels more like an ability that's on like a cooldown more so than something that you're earning through the game, because they seem to happen so quickly. That's something I think needs to be balanced. Balance is something I keep bringing up because I think this game is going to be tough to balance, because I think that the developers I'm not going to say they don't care about balancing, but I don't think it's at the top of their list. I think they're more, I'm here to make a fun video game. I think that this game is definitely going to suffer a bit from bloat in terms of adding characters. It seems like they're very motivated to add characters very quickly, very frequently. More than half the work of putting a character in this game is done, right? When you think about a game like Overwatch, Concord, Apex Legends, you still have to design a character from scratch. That's a lot of work. A lot of people underestimate how difficult it is to create a character from scratch. You don't have to do that with this video game, right? You have a laundry list of heroes that have been established for decades, and you can instantly look at those heroes and automatically get a sense for how they're going to play. So when you have someone like an Invisible Woman, especially when you look at this game that uses Overwatch as their foundation, let's be honest, it's undeniable that a lot of these heroes were created with Overwatch characters in mind. A lot of them share the same types of mechanics. Look at Invisible Woman, you go, oh, there's our Sombra. And, you start building from there. You look at Mr. Fantastic and you go, okay, stretchy arms, we can do something with that. Human Torch, well, range fire attacks, he can fly. We have to make this a flying character. So a lot of the work is done already. So I feel like that's going to motivate them to churn out more and more heroes. But by doing that, every time you introduce new heroes, you essentially enter a period of you're breaking the video game a bit. It happens in any video game. It's rare. I think Overwatch has gotten way better at it. Two of their last three releases, when you think about Mauga, you think about Juno, which is upcoming, you think about Venture. Juno and Venture were almost perfect when they were first introduced. It felt unanimous. Everyone was like, this feels like a very balanced character. Venture was definitely tweaked a bit so that by the time she launched, she felt perfectly balanced. No one complains about her. She feels good to play as and good to play against, which I think makes the perfect character. Mauga was different, though. Mauga was way overtuned, then they overpowered him again, then they brought him down. He's kind of all over the place. I think this game is going to have that same problem. But therein lies my issue with Marvel Rivals. It doesn't take itself seriously enough for me to leave Overwatch for it. This seems like a game where they're really trying to capture a bit more of the casual crowd. I don't think, even though they sometimes show shades of taking it seriously, tournament modes and competitive and stuff like that, I think that they're more interested in, is this game fun? More so than, is this game balanced? Does it feel fair? Does it feel good? I think they're more about, do you have fun playing as these characters? And it shows off in the game. The game just doesn't feel as good as a game like Overwatch, or heck, even a game like Concord, where those games have this weight to them that I think just feels a lot better. Sometimes I play this game and, I'm playing on PC, and I sometimes still feel like I'm playing a high-resolution mobile game, like a much better looking and, let's be honest, better playing mobile title. It doesn't feel, and I think a lot of it comes out to like these small things, but a big part of it is that weight. It lacks that weight. It lacks that presence. It lacks, like I said, and part of the balancing, the respawns aren't balanced enough right now, where it feels like you have no room to breathe. It feels like you see on your screen, the screen tells you got an ace. You're able to wipe out the whole team. And before you know it, 5 people are already back into the video game. So it's these small things where you can tell they look at it as like, well, if people respawn faster, they play more, they're having more fun. They're not looking at it as, maybe we have to rebalance this respawn system because people keep trickling in. We have to encourage people to group up and understand how objective games actually are supposed to work. It looks like they have no desire to introduce row queue. Row queue means that there's a lockdown composition. A lot of people are using 2-2-2. This is one that I kind of sort of slightly agree with a tiny bit. It can be frustrating. I always play support because, I'll be honest, 99% of the people that I've watched playing the game just have absolutely no idea how to play support. They just want to attack. I get it. So I usually play support because I get frustrated playing anyone else when I just don't get any type of feels. And it's like, well, this game, it's just no fun that way. And yeah, it can be frustrating when you're the only support, or you have no tanks, so you only have 4 DPS, and tanks are so important to take the aggro in this game because their health pools are so large. But I sort of like the flexibility of not being locked rigidly. I think it works a little bit better for this game. So I personally think that they should figure out a way to see if there's something else they can think of, or some way to balance around something like that. Like, do the numbers shift? If you have only one healer, does that team get a bit of a health pool advantage because you only have one healer or something like that? Do you get a bit, I don't know, of a CC advantage if you only have one tank? I think that's something I think they should play around with, because I think it works a lot better for this game. But my closing thoughts are this. If this game did not have Marvel characters, how successful do you think it would be? Because I think we can say right now, this game's already a success. It's gotten so much positive buzz from the moment that it was announced. The alpha went through very positively. I think the beta is going through positively. That marketing team has done a phenomenal job. I like that even during the alpha, they were very open about it. They were confident in their product. There was no NDA. It was, here's the game, stream it, show it, make YouTube videos. Is one of the smartest decisions that they've made. I think they've been pretty communicative. The Discord is really good. I like that they, like I said, are really aggressive with adding characters and stuff like that. I'm curious to see what the rest of the maps are. They only added one new map in this versus the alpha, and it does get kind of boring very, very quickly. So hopefully we see more maps in the open beta, which I think maybe we'll see happen in September. Maybe we could see this game released in October, November. I could definitely see it happening. Yeah, I think overall that's the question I reckon with when I play the game. I say to myself, why am I playing this video game? And it's Marvel. It's those characters. That IP is just so strong that it's not even like a scenario that I'm creating. It's just a fact. If you took this same exact game, same mechanics, but you put completely original characters, this game would fail almost immediately because it just doesn't do anything really different enough. The modes are all pretty much copy and pasted from Overwatch. A lot of the hero abilities, even though they've been tweaked a bit, you can tell are heavily inspired by Overwatch. There are a lot of things in the game that just don't really feel very satisfying as a player. Some of the team up abilities are really super broken. Introducing Adam Warlock, I think, was very interesting because if you have Adam Warlock and on your team you have Star-Lord and Mantis, when they die, they can instantly get revived. And it does go on a bit of a cooldown, so you can only use it once, I think every 3 minutes or 2 minutes is the cooldown. But yeah, it just doesn't feel good to kill someone and then they just sort of get this second life. What's his face? Adam Warlock can revive your entire team. He can walk away and revive them sort of in a corner of the room. So it's like Mercy's mass res. But if you're smart about it, you can get everyone back to full health. It's really stupid, obviously, if you use it like in the middle of the field, you're going to be able to delete the characters. So there's a bit of balancing there. But yeah, it's things like that kind of don't really feel good because you earn those eliminations. Now they're taken away from you. It's one of the reasons why that ability was taken away from Mercy. But once again, it's like, it's this sense of like, yeah, I don't really care about balancing or anything like that. This is fun. This seems like a fun mechanic. Give Magneto, when he's playing with Wanda, give him a blade that strikes through the entire field that can kill you as a support in the back line in one swipe. Yeah, let's go ahead and just add that to the video game. So much of the stuff, like I said, feels broken. Now, they did address some balancing from the alpha to the beta, so there could be some more balancing on the way. But yeah, if this game did not have Marvel in the name, I don't think it would be as popular. The question for a person like me is, will I be leaving Overwatch for this game? Absolutely not. It's not going to happen. Will I play this upon launch? Yes, I will. I think I still will play it. But I think it's one of those games where I'll play, once in a while. Maybe they add new heroes. I'd be interested to see what Wolverine looks like and plays like in this video game. There's a lot of potential here, I think, also for them to make a lot of money with this. I think they should definitely look into variants. So I would definitely sell variants. So if you have Black Panther, you're selling a Killmonger version of that character for $20 or something like that. You're selling the Sam Wilson version of Captain America for $20 that mechanically play the same, but obviously you have a new model, you have new voices. That's just a gold mine in and of itself, waiting for that to be unlocked for them. There's just a lot that they can do here with this game financially that I think they're going to be able to find success with, especially because, like I said, I think they're going to do a great job being able to capture a casual crowd that looks at games like Apex, that looks at games like Overwatch and go, this is too much, this is too serious, and go to this game and just be able to log in and have some fun with characters that they grew up, admiring since they were children. So I think it's going to have its place. But I just don't think it's for me. I think that there's a lot here where, once again, another great example I would give out is visual clutter. Obviously with 6v6, there's so much visual clutter, and then you add to it with destructible environments. But it sort of feels like someone was in a meeting and was like, guys, I think this is too much. We have these bubbles, these barriers, these colors. Now we're adding destruction where buildings and debris could come down. I think this is, obviously we have 12 players on the field. This is too much visual clutter. Respawns are really fast. There's no time to breathe. And someone out there was like, nah, but it's fun. It's fun. So I don't really care about the balance. Adam Warlock has a really interesting ability that is unique to this game that I actually really like. He has the ability where he can chain people together. So you can connect up to 5 of your teammates together, and the damage scale is shared. So if one person takes 200 damage, that 200 is divided among 500 people, so their damage goes down equally. It's an amazing ability. I thought it was really, really smart. His healing is also very unique, where it's on a cooldown. When you press it, it's sort of like a chain lightning, where you can, the first person you heal gets the bulk of it, but then it chains off to others, so you can kind of heal a bunch of people simultaneously. I thought it was very, very smart. So there is some originality to the character. But when you link these people together, the visual and audio cues for damage taken is shared. So if I'm standing back here, but my Punisher up front is taking damage, I see the angle of his damage and I hear the damage he's taken. So it's confusing me. So there's a lot of this visual and audio clutter that makes no sense at all. That it just feels like they could have scaled it back, but it was like, nah, but it's just kind of fun to have all this stuff happening at the same time. It's okay for this thing to be messy. It's okay for Groot to have 6 walls up at the same time that take so long to freaking take down. There's just so much visual and audio clutter in the game. And like I said, I think that lack of weight, to me, I think guarantees that this game will never replace Overwatch. For me personally, this is not an Overwatch killer. You're going to hear a lot of people saying that. I just truly don't think it is. I think if people are liking this, that means that they really dislike Overwatch. But I think because of that weight, that responsiveness, that seriousness that Overwatch takes itself, I think that those people will never, I'm not going to say never leave, but I don't think they'd leave for this game. I just don't see that happening. But I don't think that's their aim. Their aim is not to convert Overwatch players. They're going to be able to convert a few from all these different games. I think there's more I think Fortnite, I think, is more a threat than some of these other games, to be honest with you. Because I'm curious if Marvel would leverage less of their IP going forward for Fortnite to see if they can get some more people going here. Now, it won't be like drastic, but just something I kind of think about. Like I said, I think it's really fun. It is free to play. There's going to be an open beta, I'm sure, at some point within the next 2 months if they continue this pattern they've been going with. I would 100% recommend people to give it a try. And that's overall what I take from it. It's unbalanced, kind of frustrating at times, but honestly still pretty fun. This week's hot releases, we have August 1st, Toomba Special Edition coming to PC, PS5, and Switch. Star Wars Bounty Hunter coming to all platforms, also on August 1st. And then August 2nd, we have World of Goo 2 coming to PC and Switch. Time for us to wrap it up. The stories we didn't have time to get to. An eagle-eyed fan spotted a statue at San Diego Comic-Con of Legacy of Kain's protagonist, featuring a logo for Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remastered. I loved these games as a child. It's very hard to show someone this game now and help them to understand why this game was so cool, because it looks so crummy now, right? I don't think that this game really aged super well. I think some of the environments aged well, but I think overall I think it's just a tough sell for someone who's a modern gamer. So I'm kind of like happy, but I know that it's probably just going to be run through a texture upreser. I'm not expecting a top to bottom remake, which I think this game deserves a top to bottom remake, especially since this logo shows both of these games remastered. I just can't imagine that actually happening. I think we're just going to get an upres, but still pretty cool. More people will be able to experience this game. A bit of a debate popped up online regarding Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn, because the game's easiest difficulty story does not allow players to unlock achievements or trophies. Now, this is definitely not the first game to do this. I remember Uncharted. I've been replaying the Uncharted trilogy lately, and you can't get any of the trophies in the easiest difficulty. So this is not really anything new. I don't have a problem with this. There's some people that are saying like, if I'm playing on the easiest difficulty and I earned 20 headshots, that's the same. That's just as skillful as if you achieved it in hard or whatever. No, not necessarily, because the AI scripts could be easier or different in the easiest difficulty, so you can't really compare them. But I think the other part of it is it's right there in the name. It's called an achievement. You should feel like you're achieving something. And yeah, there are a lot of games that I will admit I love achievements, I love trophies. And yeah, when I play games, usually my second playthrough, if I'm mopping stuff up, I'll usually play on the easiest difficulty because it's an option presented to me, and I like to save time, right? But if it was something where it's like, no, you have to do this on normal in order to complete these challenges, I think I would still do it. And yeah, I think achievements are additional. They're not supposed to be like a key feature of the game. Usually, things in the game are not attached to achievements. Sometimes they are. Some unlockables are, but for the most part, they're not. The only thing you get is that little picture, the little sound, and that number. That's it. And for places you get your trophies. So yeah, it's called an achievement for a reason. I think there should be a feeling of achievement. So I don't actually have any issues with this. Apex Legends reversed a controversial Battle Pass change after massive fan backlash. Fans will once again be able to use Apex coins to purchase the premium tier of the Battle Pass. Obviously, fans are really happy about this. I'm surprised. I felt like if they made this change, it was because they financially really, really had to, because it felt like such a desperation move. I'm still sort of a bit devil's advocate to this. I still think that when you enter it to a free-to-play game, I don't think the expectation should be to get the lion's share of stuff for completely free. You know, these games still need to make their money, but I'm sure fans are really happy being able to use their coins for something, especially because you've already established that from the beginning. Going back on that is kind of crummy. NetherRealm had a panel at San Diego Comic-Con where they announced a story expansion and fighter pack for MK1 called Chaos Reigns. The 6 characters being added to the game are Noob Saibot, female human versions of Cyrax and Sector, guest characters Ghostface, T-1000, and Conan the Barbarian. Animalities are also returning, free for all players. Chaos Reigns launches September 24 for $50 and $40 on Switch. This is really interesting for several reasons. I'm kind of confused about the female human version of Cyrax and Sector, but I'm very happy to see that, you know, Twitter, once again, our place, didn't explode when this announcement happened. I was a bit surprised by it. I really thought, you know, the Gremlins didn't come out on this one. I was very, very surprised by that. But yeah, I think it's more the human part that's really bothering me more so that they're not really gender bent. You know, some people are saying there's gender bending, but you're just fundamentally changing the character. I think that's more of the thing that, look, I'm not super into Mortal Kombat anymore, but I loved the games as a kid. I kind of don't get it. You know, I feel like Cyrax and Sector, there were reasons why they were machines. It's built into the lore of the game. I think it's kind of weird to change them into humans that are just wearing like an Iron Woman suit or whatever. I think that's just kind of weird. I also just generally don't understand Mortal Kombat's philosophy for guest characters. When you think about the guest characters for their first game, they were recent, they were prevalent, or you had your Peacemaker, you had your Homelander, you know, you had your Omni-Man. All these things are very, very current. They're very hot. I don't understand this obsession that they have of really old personalities, that it feels like that's outside of your player base. Like, I'm sure that there's a lot of, you know, 50, 40-year-olds who know exactly who Conan and T-1000 are. And Ghostface maybe a little bit more because Scream was a recent film, but yeah, I just find that really weird. Like, I like it because it feels like a genuine like desire and choice from Ed Boon and his team, more so than like, okay, who can we introduce is going to make the most money? But I also kind of find it weird that WB is like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that, instead of WB saying like, can we find someone maybe a little bit more current that sort of makes a little bit more sense here? Yeah, kind of interesting. And then finally, Xbox 360's digital marketplace has officially shut down for good. According to a VGC analysis, around 220 games will essentially disappear forever. This is definitely a bittersweet moment. Xbox 360 will go down as one of my favorite gaming consoles of all time. I think there are plenty of consoles that were introduced that gave us a window into the future. And I don't think we have that anymore with video game consoles. A lot of consoles play a lot safer, and there hasn't been very big paradigm shifts, I think, lately in video games. The only shifts we see is how can companies make more money. But you felt that when you played the NES for the first time. You felt that when you played the Dreamcast for everything that it did, PlayStation 2. And I think Xbox 360 was that. Xbox 360, I think, was the console that really, first provided like a central hub for everything, right? That home button, that Xbox button in the middle of the controller. Obviously, it was the one that really showed you how big multiplayer was going to be. It built off of what happened with Xbox. And then so many small things like the introduction of the hard drive, the introduction of the marketplace, the introduction of DLC, the fact that a broken game didn't have to be broken forever, and just the absolute fun games that system had. Such an amazing lineup. It's always sad when these things happen, but I loved the Xbox 360. Shout outs for the week. Shout out to the World of Warcraft team. Over 500 members have unionized with the Communication Workers of America to form the World of Warcraft Game Makers Guild. Shout out to Humble Games. Their entire team was reportedly let go last week. Shout out to Davide Soliani, the director of the Mario Plus Rabbids games. He announced he was leaving Ubisoft last week. Pretty cool guy. I've worked with him in the past. Shout out to From Software. They announced Armored Core 6 Fires Rubicon has sold 3 million copies worldwide. Please make sure to subscribe to Camp Koji on your favorite podcast platform so you can listen to it on the go. And if you already are, please leave us a review. It helps more than you know it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Please follow us on Twitter and YouTube at Camp Koji for future updates. Once again, I'm Joel, and I will see you all next week.